Now stop beating your gums and sound the attack.
All right, hello, and welcome to another episode of the We Got the Chocolates podcast. In fact, this is podcast episode 14. We have made a bit of a meal of that in the last couple of weeks, the counting aspect, but we can blame that squarely on Skin and Haz, who were obviously in control last week, while I was mastering the slopes of Mount Hotham. Obviously returned this week back at the desk, which is a huge result for everyone concerned.
Yep, good to have you, Lethal. That was one of our very few blunders last week, me and Haz. We've doubled up on episode 12, but that's all right.
To be fair, you actually, apart from that, we're actually flawless. So a little bit of credit where it's due there. Haz, welcome back. We've swapped roles this week. You're actually on the phone, not from Mount Hotham, I don't think, but you are on the phone.
Yeah, down in St Kilda. So thanks for putting the effort in to get me back on the show this week, even though I'm interstate.
No worries, mate. Not actually that tough, to be honest. We just a regular phone call and bang, you're here.
Beauty.
And Skinnell is obviously here. That is a integral part. So, Mitch, thank you for being here as well.
Always a pleasure. Yeah, not too tough to make it when you live in the studio.
That's true. Again, that word studio that we like to use for kitchen table. Absolute synonym. Righto. Guys, very exciting episode today, and we are obviously going to get through, well, we had the AFL Grand Final on the weekend. We have still got plenty of cricket happening at the moment, which Haz will obviously be able to talk us through. The NRL Grand Final is this weekend as well, and there's a few other random sports that have been brought to our attention through the Instagram activity as well. But guys, very first, one of the more exciting pieces of podcasting history that you'll ever witness. We have managed to actually secure the services of a guest today. He is an AFL player. His name is Jack Lukosius. He actually went at pick number 2 in the national draft last year to the Gold Coast Suns. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, it's quite high in the order. It sort of goes 1 and then 2. So it's fairly well played. And we are hoping that Jack is actually on the phone and able to hear us now. Jack, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for that. That was pretty kind of you.
No worries, mate. No worries at all. We just wanted to make sure that you felt very welcome there. And obviously we do have some listeners here, such as Sam Heazlett, who actually is a host, who are not particularly well educated in the AFL realm, so we just have to include that.
Thank you.
I've been living on the coast, so it's been a bit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fair. Well, you are obviously just playing just down the road from us, actually, Jack. You're just down the highway, but you aren't actually on the coast at the moment. Obviously, the season is finished, so at some point we will get you into this wonderful studio that we have built here out of a kitchen table and a couple of chairs. But we just wanted to check in with you, mate, and see how the off-season's treating you and sort of what your movements are during the off-season, where you are now, and what you plan on doing with your weeks off.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I was originally from Adelaide, so I'm back home seeing the family and stuff like that. After the season, me and a heap of the boys went to Bali for a week, which was good fun.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
But yeah, now back home, seeing family and heaps of friends that probably the biggest part you miss, not seeing them every day. So it's good to be back. But yeah, won't be too long and I'll be back up for pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very handy. And how exactly when are you expected to be back up for pre-season, man?
I think every club gets about 10 weeks off.
Okay.
So don't quote me on that, something like that. But we're back early November. But then I guess Giants and Collingwood won't be for a long while from now.
Yeah, good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it is actually individualised based on sort of how far you go into the season.
Yeah, and also I think us younger boys are back a bit earlier, and then the blokes who have been around for a bit longer get more of a break.
Okay.
Stuff like that as well, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is that just to try and get like another decent pre-season into you guys, I guess, that are younger and make sure the bodies are good to go for the next year as well?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think they want to spend too much time conditioning us, so once everyone's back, we can all get straight into footy training rather than working on conditioning and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, mate, don't be surprised. There are obviously 3 hosts of the We Got the Chocolates podcast usually, but Mitch will probably sit here. He's obviously not the most talkative person, but he is definitely still breathing and still with us, ain't Mitch?
Yep, no, still here.
Perfect. And then and actually has, we probably in fairness should talk about your footy career a little bit more, but unfortunately we've got Haz on the other end of the phone here, who usually when we do the AFL wrap during the week provides absolutely nothing, because he's just an NRL, like huge NRL fan, obviously growing up in Brisbane. Is that a sport, NRL, that you've had to try and get around, mate, now that you've moved to the coast, moved to Queensland? Have you followed that at all?
Oh, the tiniest of bit, I'd say. It's actually a fair few boys are from either like Cairns or from the Gold Coast, so they do support it a fair bit, but as being from Adelaide, I know stuff all about it. So I'm learning, but still a long way off.
So you never supported the Adelaide Rams? They were actually probably before you were born.
Never even knew that existed.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Well, just to Jack, just to keep Haz entertained, we might actually just go to sort of something that he is more interested in. And I'm unsure of how many people would obviously know this about you, but it's probably worth mentioning your cricket career as well. Obviously, sort of the Fulham Falcons there would have been very happy to have your services for multiple years to come. But you were actually quite a prodigious talent as a young cricketer as well, which is obviously where I came to know you through the West Torrens Cricket Club, and we've mentioned the three-peat that we've won quite a few times, but just to throw that out.
Get another name drop in there.
3 premierships in 1 year, that was, boys. So that's obviously where I got to meet you, Jack. I got the pleasure of meeting you and getting to face you a couple of times. But you have actually mentioned, like, on countless occasions, I've certainly seen a lot of interviews where you've sort of mentioned that you learnt your cool, calm, composed approach at the back that you're sort of well known for from having me as your sort of Friday night cricket academy coach. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. No, I did love my cricket. Yeah, it was good spending some time with you, mate.
That's right. That was absolute. Jack was very, very easy to coach. You just tell him to run in and bowl fast. He actually was. Like, I probably wasn't really cool and calm and composed when I was facing him, because he used to run in. He was not the only one, that's for sure, but he was obviously quite tall and bowled absolute wheels in the early stages of his junior career, and he wasn't sort of a big fan of utilising that bowling crease, the sort of front line. There was a couple of bowlers. Braden Renshaw was far worse, but Jack and Braden seemed to think that the front line was sort of like more of a guideline rather than something that they had to keep their foot behind. And so they were very, very scary to face on a Tuesday night. And obviously a massive shout out to Carl Mickens' Tuesday night training wickets, which were jungle book, for want of a better term. So that made the proposition very scary. You remember those days, Jack?
Yeah, I sure do, mate. Yeah, it was good fun, but the body doesn't let me do that anymore.
Yeah, very true. So sort of you haven't had anyone, while you're in Adelaide for your holidays, you haven't had anyone just come up and say, "Hey, Jack, can you have a bowl to us, mate?"
Well, there's actually been plenty of that. Everyone wants me to get a game of cricket in. But I played about probably 45 minutes the other day in the backyard. My back pulled up so bad, so I can't do it anymore.
Oh, that's so epic. Haz, you'd probably see plenty of that still, don't you, at your cricket training? The Bulls got a few players that aren't fans of keeping their foot behind the line in the training decks there.
Yeah, it's not fun, and definitely when you're in there, you pull them up because you want to tell them that you're watching, and then if you're a non-striker, then you're having a look, because when you go down, you don't want it happening to you.
Yeah, very fair, actually. To be serious, Jack, I think this is a very dumb question, but it won't be the last that you get. But with you sort of rang up the Gold Coast Suns and said, "Hey, boys, I'm just sort of obviously need to play for West Torrens second grade on the weekend. I'm just going to run in and I should be able to cap the bowling at 22 overs for the weekend." How would they be likely to respond to that?
Our head physio is actually an absolute cricket nuffy, so we talk absolute shit every day. So I've been telling him that I'm getting a game in, so he's gonna be looking at the My Cricket all summer, waiting. If anything's happened, so it'll be interesting. But I still reckon I'm a sniff to get a game in though.
Absolutely. Can't you just play it? Surely you can play as a batter or something and just make sure it's not a game that's live streamed. So
Yeah, exactly.
not all watching.
Exactly right. Playing to someone else's name, have a bowl.
Yeah, perfect. And Jack Lee was telling me before that you, obviously we've talked about your talents as a bowler in the younger days. He was telling me that you ended up opening the bowling for South Australia under 17s. before making your transition over to footy. I just wanted to ask about well that experience in that team, obviously, and then also how you ended up making that decision, or if it was sort of made for you to end up going over to footy.
Yeah, I loved it. So probably in the lead up to that, I was pretty equal on both. Loved footy and cricket, and loved training for him and stuff, all that type of stuff. And then when I got to that 17s, I was kind of training heaps for cricket during footy season. That's when it started building up on me. And then obviously it was grateful to get the opportunity to play for SA. Didn't do a whole lot, and then didn't move back straight afterwards. That kind of made the decision for me. I think.
Okay.
But yeah, still good fun. But yeah, I think I've made the right decision looking back now.
Yeah. No,
I was trying to explain to the boys before, Jack, and this is different in Queensland because, like up here, obviously you know that I play a very high standard of Australian rules football as well for the Div 2 reserves.
At Lockley's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was like Div 5, I think, out of the Lockley's Demons. That was outstanding. But since coming up to Queensland, I've actually continued my AFL career, if you could call it that. And that, like our season for cricket, if we we made the grand final this year for footy, and so our season started like one day after footy season finished. Whereas like in Adelaide, it would be there's actually always breaks. Like I was trying to explain, it's actually quite common for people to play two sports down there, isn't it? Like most people actually play footy and cricket.
Yeah, most do. You probably get a couple of weeks pre-season for footy kind of starts to the end of cricket. So if you make finals for cricket, you're always in trouble for pre-season games for footy and stuff like that. But yeah, you can easily do both.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. It seems harder to do up here actually, but I think it's also to do with the fact that, like, you played some footy. Actually, we got a question from one of the Instagram followers here, Jack, Peter Elfenbein, that was asking if you were any chance of making a comeback for the Henley Sharks at some stage. Actually,
Peter, yeah, I reckon I might one day.
Yeah,
like I don't know. I've always been. As you know, I've always played at Henley and West Torrens and Fulham. Like I haven't changed clubs or anything like that. And
no, very loyal character.
The old man loves his sport and the Sharks. I reckon I'll probably end up there one day.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm sure he'll be very pleased. That's probably the last bit of the interview that he'll listen to now. He's got what he wanted.
You like seeing Darryl White run around at the Bombers.
We've still got Darryl White playing at 58 years of age. Magnificent. That'll be Jack Lukosius as well for the Henley Sharks. But the point that I was making there, Jack, is they actually share grounds, don't they? So like we played cricket on the exact ground that like the Henley Sharks would play sort of their Div 1 footy on as well. So there was no possibility of actually, both seasons running at the same time. You needed those couple of weeks to actually make sure that you could keep the wickets.
Yeah, exactly right. I think they're doing that at the moment. I went for a run there today, and they're all out on the main deck getting the cricket pitch ready for this weekend, I think. So
yeah, that's right. Round 1 starts down there.
And guys, even for Brisbane cricket, grade cricket, we start a couple of weeks earlier than all the other states, pretty much. I know I was talking to Nick Maddinson yesterday, and he was saying that Melbourne first grade cricket still hasn't started yet. They haven't played any grade games yet because of the AFL probably and having to prepare wickets. So we're pretty lucky as cricketers up in Brisbane to have the wickets ready early in the season.
We are lucky, but then it also meant that we didn't get to watch the AFL Grand Final either because we had to play, so Melbourne get that off.
Yeah, true. No, I feel for you there.
No, you don't. Oh, perfect. Keep going, Skin.
Sharks. Oh, yeah, I'm going again. Hey, Jack, another question for you, mate. I understand you've now played 21 games of AFL at the ripe old age of 19, which is a fairly rare feat. I just wanted to know, like, were you expecting to get that many games in your first year when you first moved up, or how's it going?
Yeah. I guess I wasn't expecting to play 21, but I was hoping to play as much as possible.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, got the opportunity to play round 1 and kind of went on with it from there. Played pretty much everywhere on the field, forward, mid, and back, and learn a heap. So I think it'll hold me in a good place for next year, and keep building on that.
Yeah, no, I like it. And mate, what's actually your preferred position?
Great question. Exactly what I was going to ask.
I love kicking goals. Playing forward, it's probably most fun. But yeah, I think for me at the moment, down back's probably my best position in the AFL. And then as we go, I might turn into a forward in a few years' time. But I was pretty settled down back in the second half of the year, so I think I'll hang around there for a bit.
Okay, I like it.
I've sort of heard a few people, like people that are probably more knowledgeable than us, which you might find hard to believe, Jack. But I've heard quite a few sort of AFL pundits that talk about the fact that it actually can be quite good for like a young up-and-coming kid to actually play down back first, because they sort of get to play on really, really good attacking players, forwards that sort of know where the ball's going to go, lead them to the ball, and then that when they swing around and actually turn into a forward later in their career, that they can sort of draw upon those lessons. Do you think that's something that will hold you in good stead?
Yeah, I've heard that a few times as well. I think heaps of like gun forwards have played early in their careers down back, so hopefully I can do that as well, and just learn as much as I can. I've played on heaps of good players already this season, so looking forward to doing that next year as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. I can definitely understand, mate. My phenomenal AFL career, the few times I've been promoted up into the ones in Div 2, I've been asked to go back into the defensive line and sort of learn the ropes. So, yeah, very similar, I'm sure.
Yeah, you learnt the ropes, got told you did it really well, and then got dropped.
Got dropped back into the second grade forward line. Makes sense.
That was perfect. That's good. Now, Jack, I actually did have you in my AFL fantasy team at the start of the year, mate, out of loyalty to you. But I did have to bin you early on. I'm sorry about that, mate. I wanted to be honest, so you don't feel like our friendship is under false pretenses.
Yeah, I didn't offer much early, did I?
No, you got your average up to 52 though, to be fair, by the end. So you take that.
I think I had myself early as well, because I've done it my whole life as a kid and all that. And I'm like, geez, I need to get myself in the team, and then I had to get myself out pretty quickly.
Use one of your trades early to get you out. Yeah, well, it was actually funny. I wanted to ask you about that, because we've got one of the other men that we sort of speak to, James Baisley, is on our podcast quite often, and he's an absolute AFL fantasy snuff, like puts in full pre-seasons. Like I think his pre-season would actually be just as hard as yours. And he came, what did he come this year? 6,301st he finished. Have you ever had a result that he actually sent in this question? Have you had a result that's beat him in your time playing?
Oh, I don't know exactly. I had a few years in high school where I went all right. Like you have a league with all your mates and stuff like that. Well, I probably would have been similar to something like that, but nothing too special. You can't put that much time into it. I don't think it's not healthy.
Yeah, we'll let him know that. He's definitely.
After watching phase, I agree with that.
Oh,
sure.
It's turned into an addiction. Man, honestly, I'm sure that would have been great for your schooling grades as well. There, Jack, just having that in your classrooms.
Yeah, they were loving it.
Perfect. Mate, this is actually a slightly serious question, which is weird. But myself and Mitch sort of actually don't understand how you make kicking look so easy, because like every kick, as we talked about, we're not great, but every kick, we actually don't have a problem getting the ball, but when we get it, we kick at 100% turnover rate.
Correct.
And even Haz, we sort of showed Haz in the lead up to you coming on, we showed Haz your highlights package. And he was like, geez, it's a nice kicking action. He doesn't even know anything about AFL. Is that fair, Haz?
Yeah, you're right, but it did look really natural, and you see some guys that look quite robotic and trained with the technique, but yeah, it was nice and smooth and flowing. So yeah, that was my summation.
There you go, Haz. You could actually be a coach in the AFL, just a technician.
Then you see other blokes like Lethal and I that aren't trained in the technique and aren't natural either.
Well, this is what I was going to ask. Is it like your kicking style, Jack? Is that something that just comes naturally to you? Because I mean, like you've probably seen me in terms of cricket, the fact that I've shadow batted every possible minute of the day, but I actually find myself shadow kicking as well sometimes, and like trying out new grips and stuff, and thinking about like just hoping that I'm going to stumble across the cheat codes to kicking. Which hasn't happened for me yet. Is that something that you actually do? Like, are you a technician that thinks about your technique, or are you just run in and kick the ball and it just happens?
Probably mainly as a kid, when you spend all day, every day, just kicking the footy around. So you do heaps of it, and you get pretty good at it, I guess. It becomes pretty natural. So that's probably for me, how it works. Now it's not a whole lot of thinking goes into it. But even now, you train as a professional athlete. You're kicking footies every day, so you can only try new things and try and get better. But I've been told off a couple of times this year for trying to bite off a bit more than I can chew. So I might have to look after that.
So you got to rein it in a bit there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't like to, but we'll see what happens.
Very fair. Now, mate, obviously because you came on the podcast, we were all three of us were about to sort of run out and just grab ourselves some number 41 Gold Coast Guernseys to obviously hang up in our room or be able to wear when we're podcasting in the future. But we were speaking to you about that, and you said we might actually have to hold up on that. Is there a sort of process for changing your number? Like, is it a similar amount of paperwork to sort of applying for a visa, or is it quite straightforward?
Oh, I have no idea. I've messaged one of the blokes at the club, letting him know I could be looking at a new number. But I think we have to wait and see what's available. And there's all the trade period and that still to come. But yeah, hopefully I can secure something nice.
So you weren't a fan of 41, man?
Oh, he was all right. It's just, I might try and secure something a bit lower.
Sure.
Very, very fair.
Jack, did you get to watch the grand final over the weekend by any chance, mate? Didn't?
Yeah. I took the girlfriend over for her birthday, and then she did her knee, which was great.
Oh, yeah, right. Makes sense.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, went over there. That was good fun.
Wait, so you were at the G?
Yep.
Beautiful. And how was it? Is that sort of what you were expecting, that result, or?
I've been to two now. The first one I went to was the Crows Richmond a couple of years ago as a Crows fan, and the Richmond destroyed them. And
that was a blowout too, wasn't it?
And they destroyed the Giants again. So I think I'm good luck for the Tigers. It was good to watch the first quarter and a bit, and then it was all just the Richmond Army taking over.
Yeah, right.
Jack, It's probably not a great thing to be good luck for the Tigers when you're going to play against them.
They actually destroyed us this year as well. But yeah, hopefully we can get them next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And mate, the other thing that happened during the week was the Brownlow medal as well, sort of AFL's Night of Nights, which obviously Nat Fyfe won his second Brownlow there. Is that something that you sort of follow? Like, one question I actually want to know is, this is not for me, obviously, this is for a friend, but how do you go about getting yourself a ticket to the Brownlow, like as a player? Does anyone get invited, or you have to poll votes, or how does it work there?
Oh, I think you have to have a pretty good season to get a gig.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 from each team. So I'm guessing it's either the AFL invites who they think, or the club invites maybe the top 5 in the BNF or something like that. But yeah, it's whoever they think's going to do well, and they all get guests as well, obviously.
Yeah, how good. And do you follow it, mate? Do you get into it? Did you think Nat Fyfe was the chance, or were you thinking somewhere else?
Oh, he's a chance. He's a star. Didn't quite follow it, but yeah, definitely watch it on the night. And I thought Cripps had it about 5 rounds in, but yeah, Fyfe polled very well.
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive. We'll make sure that we sort of get around the Jack Lukosius votes for next year. Make sure that we're keeping count of them.
Hopefully I can get a start to my voting career.
Yeah, this is right, exactly. One sort of last serious question, I guess, Jack, is just obviously like the Gold Coast season probably as a whole it's not one that you would sort of sit there and find hugely enjoyable at times, I'm sure. But do you take sort of some heart out of seeing sort of, I guess, just up the road where the sort of Lions were 2 years ago, and the fact that they probably had a season that's quite similar to the one that you guys have just had, and obviously seeing the way that they've sort of the form that they've been able to produce this year and sort of turn around from having just young guys that have got heaps of games into them. That's something that you look at and go, well, we have got a recipe for success here.
Yeah, exactly right. They were pretty awesome this year, and it gives you hope that anything can change really quickly. They've got the right people in at the right time, and it's worked. So if we stick to what we're doing and get a few players in, you never know, we could change it around pretty quick. So I'm pretty excited by what we can do up there.
That's magnificent to hear, man. That's very, very exciting. That is for sure. Now, if you haven't fallen asleep there, you've actually got a couple of questions to ask as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm still here. Jack, as a professional athlete, obviously all you do during your days is think about AFL and plan for the games and train for the games. So what do you like to do off the footy field to take your mind off the game?
For me, this year, the biggest part was probably just moving away from home. I've always lived with my mum and dad and had my mates. So new lifestyle, new everything. So that was big for me. And then eventually I moved out as well. So getting used to the Gold Coast, I suppose. We're down the beach heaps. Buying groceries, cooking, all that kind of stuff that I've never really been fond of before. So a whole lot of things changed this year. But yeah, it was a good experience. And
Jack, do you have Do you have I'm just going to hijack that question for a sec, Jack. Do you have a go-to meal deal that you can cook now that you know, like if there's someone that you have to impress, that you know you're just going to be able to produce MasterChef style?
We got the chef over one day and we made us this paella, me and Ben King. So now every single time we've got nothing to cook, we just make this paella. And it's the weirdest thing to make, like, as the go-to, but it's just what we do at the moment. Yeah.
Very good. Have you had a chance to do any surfing? I mean, I'm a big fan of surfing, and we took Lee for a surf a couple of weeks back, but now you're a Gold Coast local. Have you got out in the water on a surfboard?
Yeah, I've tried. I'm not the best at it. It might be a work in progress. But yeah, I love the water, love swimming and all that kind of stuff, but I've got zero talent at surfing. But we're definitely going to keep on the game. Hopefully get there one day.
Yeah, a bit warmer water on the Gold Coast and down in South Australia, but I reckon you're probably better than Lee already from what I saw in person.
Oh, Gandhi. I was about to say, don't go with Haz if you want to get better at surfing. One of the worst teachers ever. He just leaves you in the dust and goes and surfs for 8 hours by himself.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
No, fantastic. Jack, we better let you go, mate, because obviously you've got very little to do from what you've said, actually. Maybe cook yourself a paella.
Yeah, exactly right. Get dinner sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you coming on so much, mate, and it's been unbelievable to have a chat to you and get some insight into obviously where you've come from and where you're heading to. And we obviously will follow your career with great interest. And we when you do sort of choose your new number, then let us know and we'll go and grab those Guernseys.
No, beautiful. Thanks for having me on. I'm keen to get in the studio one day. It should be good.
Yeah, mate. No, we'll invite you down. Absolutely. It's always getting better, this studio as well.
Sounds good, mate.
Cheers, Jack. Thank you very much.
Easy. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate.
Now, guys, wonderful chat we've just had there with Jack Lukosius. Obviously, we are just going to quickly continue. I mean, we spoke mostly about AFL, but we will just very quickly continue with the AFL wrap.
That was out of bounds. Up there, sailing. In there and fight. Out there and Adam. Show 'em.
Fantastic. Now, as we've already mentioned, obviously Nat Fyfe through the week won his second Brownlow, serious player that he is. That grand final result, we did talk about the fact that ended up being quite a blowout. So it was Richmond Tigers 17 goals, 12 behinds, 114 plays. GWS Giants 3 goals, 7 behinds, 25. And we did actually get a question sent in on Instagram asking to ask Jack whether he thinks that Gold Coast would have been able to contribute more to the scoreboard there. But we just did not have enough time to get everything in there. We apologise. That would have been a very, very good question. And probably the other main piece of AFL news that has come to light here, guys, is that Justin Longmuir has just been named as the new coach of Fremantle, obviously replacing Ross Lyon for next season. He was the assistant coach of Collingwood for this year, and he has basically effective immediately. He is going to take over the reins at Fremantle. And so we have sort of Nat Fyfe at the head of that ship, fresh off his second Brownlow, but obviously looking for more success as a team. So exciting times.
Yep, agreed.
Excellent news. Thanks. How's you still there? You still breathing?
Yeah, still, I can't really contribute to that one, sorry.
No, that's no worries at all, Haz. Okay. Well, in that case, Haz, here's another one for you. We're just going to go straight to the rugby union. Obviously, we talked about the fact that is quite a big event at the moment. Isn't it, Skin?
Yeah, the old World Cup, that tends to be,
the World Cup.
In the headlines.
That is correct. And it has been massively in the headlines, particularly from an Australian point of view. Now, Skin, probably the first piece of news that needs to be covered, and some of our Instagram followers did suggest this as well, is that you really do actually have to be given a pat on the back here. I'm not sure if you're aware of what happened last night, but basically in the takeover that we did, the little Rugby Union World Cup takeover while we were watching the Australia versus Wales game, we basically asked Skin, based on Skin stats, how is this game going to finish? And Skin said, unfortunately, Wales are going to win by 4 points. And lo and behold, Wales did indeed win by 4 points. So what does that take us to in the skin stats, sort of the spreadsheet that we showed everyone that you did earlier in the year in the lead up to this? How are your results looking now?
Results are going all right, really. I've had a couple blunders here and there. I think I'm currently sitting at 13 out of 17 tips. I haven't gone back. I haven't actually checked all the sort of final margins. I'm going to take a guess and say that's probably the only one I've gotten spot on. Just so, thankfully, it was the one we had an Instagram story up for.
We'll never do that again.
But no, it's going all right. I mean, 13 from 17. What's that? That's over 75%. That's significantly better than I went in the AFL tipping this year, and I don't even know anything about the sport, so I'm pretty happy.
No, absolutely. Who was the team?
Putting some money on it.
Yeah, I should have been putting money on it. I don't think I probably wasn't expecting to go this well when I started, to be honest. But
you're going to be getting that many messages after the tipsters thing that you just produced yesterday. You'll be getting direct messages all the time asking who they should be gambling on.
Sports
Start doing it for all different codes.
Yeah.
Do a spreadsheet for other codes as well.
Yeah, give us a spreadsheet for all of them, I reckon.
Yeah, I need to start working on it for next season in the AFL at least.
Yeah, the NFL as well. We can get Charles Dickinson back and Michael Dixon.
Yeah.
Your favourite NFL player as well. See how he's going in the inside 20s.
Yep, start throwing some bets on him. That'll be good.
Yeah, that's right.
A few multis together from different sports.
Perfect. We've got a few listeners that will help you out with the NFL ones, definitely. Now, guys, that particular game, Australia v Wales, there were a couple of big controversies that we do have to talk over. Now, this was actually marred by sort of stoppages throughout the game by obviously the referee and then the TMO as well, stepping in to try and sort of stamp out foul play. But someone was saying that in the end, sort of across 3 of those decisions, that they actually managed to sort of waste like 7 minutes of game, time elapsing within the game. Now, the biggest turning point in the game, you would say, and the one that sort of Michael Checker and Michael Hooper were probably most disgruntled about, was the Samu Karevi being penalised for leading with his forearm. Did you guys see this, Sam? Have you been able to see that?
Yeah, and it's funny. Actually, I heard Samu talking about it afterwards and saying that if they're going to make calls like that, they should just go and play rugby league, which is funny, seeing as though everyone's talking about rugby league becoming soft and too harsh on those sort of things as well.
Yeah. I actually read that as well, and I was thinking, I'm pretty sure we've actually seen people in rugby league get penalised for that this year as well.
Yeah, well, you can't lead with the forearm, and you're supposed to have the outstretched hand, but depends case by case, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Hooper sort of made the point that it's a very poor tackling technique by the defending player, and like that no one's allowed to run anymore and brace themselves for impact. And I guess I felt a little bit sorry for Karevi because his initial contact was actually with the guy's chest. Like he wasn't sort of leading at him with his elbow braced for his jaw. He bounced up off his chest into his throat. Was obviously penalised for that. Yep. So it seemed, we've never pretended to be massively knowledgeable on sort of rugby union, but that to me did seem a little bit stiff.
Yeah, a lot of these things you don't plan for. It's sort of just a natural protection mechanism for yourself, really, and it leads to a penalty. So I guess you hope they're not quite as harsh on it on review if it wasn't intentional. But same with tackles nowadays. Like tackle might start around the chest or around the shoulders and then end up slipping up and making contact with the head, and now that's being penalised now because there is contact with the head at some stage, so it's hard to stop.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But essentially, guys, what happened from there is that Wales were obviously awarded a penalty after it being reviewed for a long time. They kicked a penalty goal from that and then obviously scored from the next play, basically, after the kickoff, which was an intercept try. And the ironic thing about that, and the thing that I guess frustrated most Australian rugby fans, is that for that intercept try, they actually did not spend any time checking it or reviewing it, even after checking something else that seemed slightly minor for such a long period of time. And then replays sort of were inconclusive about whether that particular try scorer that took the intercept was onside or not. And that sort of promoted, I guess, plenty of comments like these ones, essentially.
A controversial intercept try.
I just don't know why they didn't go back and check that intercept try off Wilgenia. Just give us proof that he was onside, and then you go, good play, mate, really well read. But we don't know because they didn't go back and check. But he had the nerve to go back and check 3 other incidents throughout the game that took 3 or 4 minutes on each.
That had no bearing on the game.
Essentially, they scored 10 points.
There you go. And that discussion went on for some time, but essentially that, I guess I sort of agree with the point that's being made there. I mean, if you are going to turn it into a situation where you're checking everything for foul play, then surely you've got to make sure that the actual ones that are costing points are being checked. Now, I don't actually know whether
I think that when there's points scored, I think it's worth checking without a doubt. But it's hard. You have to draw the line somewhere, and it's the same in rugby league. Like they say, they should check this, they should check that. If they're going to check all the things they do check, but you don't have time to check every single tackle or play. Or there's so many turnovers that you don't know whether they've dropped it or whether it was a strip or what happened. And you might be able to if you took the time to check it, but you just can't take that much time out of the game to check it. So there has to be a line drawn somewhere, unless you just say we're not using it at all. But I think that's a bit hard to say now with where we're at.
Yeah, no, I agree, actually, in fairness. And that's actually one area of where rugby is actually different to NRL, is that the referees do actually just back themselves to blow a try straight away. I've noticed that a lot more.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so they're obviously not sponsored by sort of KFC to quite the extent that NRL is, because they just literally back themselves in, bang, try, move on, let's go.
Yeah, well, it's often just like someone's fallen over the line after a ruck or a maul, and they've just pushed their way over. So a lot of them are, I guess, a bit more simple. There's not as many obstruction plays and stuff going on, but yeah, I know what you mean.
And we know how you like your obstruction plays, so how's?
Love it.
All right, mate. Well, we better let you talk about it then.
Lassoed by Tallis. Look at Tallis. Look at Tallis. He drags him. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest.
All right, my time to shine. NRL wrap for the week. So Rugby League is a week behind the AFL for their season. So we've got 2 games this weekend that have just been played in the preliminary finals. First game, Raiders beat the Rabbitohs. Unfortunately, my Rabbits went down. The Raiders were the favourites going into the game in the betting markets, with the Rabbits being below average in the last part of the year and the last few games. So it's no real surprise, but they're a strong team and they were always a chance. Soliola and Papali were both put on report, but since have been cleared, and rightly so, in my opinion, for their indiscretions there. And it's good for the Raiders as well, because those two have been a massive part of the team's success this year. Even though they're front rowers, they go unnoticed a bit, but they've been outstanding for the Raiders. Another one, Joey Leilua, potentially injured his ankle during the game. Not sure exactly how bad it is, but reports I've seen said he's likely to play, but we'll really have to wait and see. They've kept it under wraps a bit. Joey was actually dragged away from a post-match interview with Brad Fittler after the game. Fittler was in the sheds and had Leilua and another player ready to talk to them. He was talking to the other guy first, and then I don't know who it was, whether it was the media manager or the physio, but dragged Joey Leilua away. So the Fittler couldn't get the inside scoop on how his injury was by the looks of it.
They obviously weren't trusting him to say the right thing.
Yeah, don't want the information getting out there, but yeah, we'll wait and see later in the week.
Surely Brad Fittler would have kept it secret.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait.
No one watches those post-match interviews, do they? Everyone just turns the TV off after the game's done.
Actually, that's exactly what I do, but I'm sure other people just sit and watch it.
There was a big call from the match, actually. Corey Allen returning a kick Grubber had been put through to the in goal, and he sort of slid on his stomach before then getting up and trying to get the ball out of the in goal. And he dropped the ball after playing on, leading to Jared Croker scoring a try, the first try of the match, I think it was. And a bit of an unknown rule to me, actually, is because Corey Allen on replay showed that he forced the ball in goal before trying to get up and make it back out again. So I was thinking, it's a no try because he's forced the ball, so it's going to go to a goal line dropout. But the rule actually states that it depends on what his intention was at the time. And it was clear, obviously, that his intention wasn't to ground the ball. He was trying to keep it off the ground and get out of the in goal. It wasn't intentionally grounded. So, and to the letter of the law, it was a try because he was trying to get back out and play on and knocked it on. But I never knew that was a rule. I always thought even if it was accidentally grounded before before the player got to go out that it was just a goal line dropout from there.
Yeah, that's definitely what I thought as well, to be fair, because I was almost certain that that people obviously when they are tackled like that, there's been times that they have probably that hasn't been their intention to ground the ball, but obviously that's just happened in the act.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess that's one that's left up to interpretation, one of those rules, and it's worded that way, but you could see there'd be a lot of circumstances where you wouldn't be sure exactly what the player's intention was, and that's why a lot of rules nowadays are going to that black and white, if they did it or they didn't do it, and not up to interpretation. But that one still is one that's going to be up to opinion, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to have to get that one fixed up, otherwise it's not going to stay in your rule book.
No, I don't mind either way. Whatever they go with, but you have to go with it.
Has to be black and white though. Like a zebra crossing.
No, it doesn't have to be, but
Sam Heazlett's zebra
doesn't
crossings.
have to be. But if it is, it is. I don't mind if they're up to interpretation. I'm not complaining. But
Haz, you're sitting on the fence so much today. What's going on?
Loves it.
Get off the boundary, Haz. Get in the infield.
Well, let's move on. Let's move on to another part of the game. Nicole Klokstad, the Raiders fullback, who's had a great year at the back there, been a revelation for them, was sin-binned with 10 minutes left, so he was basically out for the rest of the game for stripping after tackling Adam Reynolds, who'd made a breakdown down the field. The ref's interpretation was that he was trying to slow down the play of the ball, let the rest of the defenders get on side, and therefore it was a professional foul. Probably a 50-50 call. I mean, I thought it was fair. Adam Reynolds was trying to get up and play the ball, and he held on for a little bit long. And some people are saying it might have been a loose carry, but definitely could have affected the result in the end with the Rabbitohs getting that penalty, but didn't change the result. Right, he still won the game.
It's good. It's good to see, to be honest. It's good. I was pretty happy to see the Raiders into a grand final. I think that's awesome because you do love seeing clubs that have become sort of underdogs get themselves into positions where they could potentially seek some glory. So I'm sort of obviously a bit of a fan of the Raiders this season and what they've been able to do, and for that reason I was sort of pretty ecstatic to see them actually progress to the grand final there.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I guess even though I wanted the Bunnies to do well, I'm pretty stoked that the Raiders are the ones that have beaten them to get their chance to win a grand final, and I think I'll be going for the Raiders. Hopefully they beat the Roosters in the grand final next week, and that brings us to mentioning that the Roosters did beat the Melbourne Storm in the second game of the round, and it was number one versus number two in attack and defence, with those two teams being the top two teams in attack and defensive stats throughout the year, and probably wasn't the standard to start the game that viewers were hoping for. There's a lot of penalties early in the game that probably detracted from the quality of footy and the pace. Both teams not at their best.
What about the sin bin? The sin bin 19 seconds into the game. That was unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm getting into that, Takiaho and Nelson and Sofa Solomona both sin binned for facial contact at the start of the game. 19 seconds in. I don't know if we've had two people sin bin that early. The footage didn't show too much heavy contact, but a lot of aggression being shown, and both players probably regret it in hindsight, even though there's a lot of emotion in those situations, and you want to start the game on top and show you're not backing down. Roosters ended up winning 14-6, and as you'd expect from a Melbourne side who are well disciplined, they probably weren't as much as they normally are, but they had more possession slightly throughout the game and actually had a higher completion rate, which often leads to a win. But Roosters had more tackle and line breaks in attack, and I guess that led to more points in the end, and they had that attacking flair to get them over the line, which means that Cooper Cronk will now be playing in his fourth straight grand final. So
that's great. And that's actually the second time he's done that in his career, isn't it? He did it in 2006, 7, 8, 9 as well, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's why the Roosters brought him up to Sydney and got rid of Mitchell Pearce there. So I guess he's done his job.
Yeah, my oath, yeah, absolutely. What about in the NRLW, Has?
Yep. the final round 3 of the normal season for the women. Warriors actually beat the Broncos 10-8, and the Dragons beat the Roosters 24-16. So means it is a Broncos-Dragons grand final next week, Sunday 4 p.m, just before the men's game. So Broncos will be looking to go back-to-back, and Dragons will be hopefully trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be cool. That'll be an awesome occasion for them to play. Obviously, as crowd is building quite substantially there as well. Is there plans for that to progress into a bigger competition? I assume there will be, sort of like the AFLW is doing.
Yeah, I have heard that they're looking to add a couple more teams. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I think the NRL are wanting clubs to send in sort of applications to say, this is why we deserve a women's team, and I'm sure that'll encompass financial reasons and feeder club things, how many women football players there are in the state, whatever it might be. But yeah, they're looking to do that so they can expand the game a little bit.
Outstanding. Very, very good, Haz, as per usual. One of your great raps there, I must say. Now we're going to move on to cricket, Haz, if that's all right with you.
Perfect. Happy for that.
Oh, that ball is close. He's given him! He's given him! Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday. Champion, 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 champion.
Excellent. Now, Haz, there's a couple of big things happening in cricket this week. Obviously, the under-17 national titles are on this week in Mackay as well. And I was actually sitting there after getting my car service this morning. I was sitting watching sunrise and found it quite odd that they were sort of including some sort of cricketers at an airport as part of their news headlines, but it was actually the fact that on the way from Brisbane to Mackay yesterday, a Qantas Airlines wheel exploded, so they had to make like a landing, which was quite scary actually. Qantas have said it wasn't an emergency landing, it was just a landing just to be cautious, because even though there's 6 wheels, you can actually land on 5. But I think I'd be happier with taking the 6 option if given the opportunity to make that choice, that's for sure. But on board was actually the Australian under-16 team, who are going to play in the under-17s National Carnival this week. But everyone's fine, everyone's all clear, and they've all made it to Mackay, and those games started today. We obviously actually... Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens a fair bit, that sort of thing. But as someone who does travel a bit, going interstate for cricket, it doesn't give you too much peace of mind that when you're always worried about takeoffs and landings and wanting to be safe, because plane flights aren't the calmest of things to be a part of.
Yeah, sorry, Haz, I didn't even think about that. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, knowing that you still have to fly back to Brisbane.
Yeah, nervous flyer, right? It has.
You always get the heart rate increasing a little bit.
It certainly is now after that story. They're perfect. So we've actually, the Redlands Tigers, we've got 5 players that are playing in the Queensland under-17s team there, so we will keep you updated on how they are going as well. But obviously on to the Marsh Cup, which is really heating up in Queensland, won their 3rd straight game the other day. When was that? Yesterday, Sunday, in fact. And Usman Khawaja came back into the side yesterday, 100 straight away, and quite a big 100 as well for a one-day game. And he obviously opened the batting with you, and you are seeing them like beach balls at the moment. So you obviously managed to get yourself on with another 50 as well. Talk us through that game, mate.
Yeah. Well, we won the toss, and Usman wanted to have a bat first, so we went out and batted first. I had to assess the conditions a bit, but it was great to bat with Uzi. He sort of leaves you with a bit of confidence out there, and I think we had about 180 run partnership to open the batting, so that was pretty cool. And it would have been nice if I was able to stay out there a little bit longer and bring up the 100. I think I ended up on 88, so it was getting close, and I haven't been able to tick it over yet. But yeah, always next game, which is tomorrow for us against Victoria again. We played them twice in a row.
Right, that's weird.
But yeah, we managed to get, I think, 320 odd, so really good score on that wicket, because it was actually quite a challenging wicket to score runs on if you bowl good areas. It wasn't one that had a lot of juice in it and was doing a lot, but was quite dead and tough to score if you bowl good areas. And Marcus Deputy came out for us to bowl and got 4 for. Quite impressive on that wicket, and they were 4 and 5 for not many Victoria trying to chase down our total. So it was a pretty good start for us. and they just made it really hard for them to keep going from there. They really couldn't afford to take any risks, and our bowlers did a great job. And it was surprising with their quality of batters they had in their lineup. I'll definitely forget some, but guys like Maxwell and Finch and Hanscom and Madison, Bukowski, just to name a few. But they're a very, very good team. So nice to get one up on them to start one of those first two games. So hopefully we can take that momentum into the next game. I think there was actually quite an interesting one yesterday, a few stoppages throughout the game. We had to stop the game after the first ball was bowled. I faced the first ball and James Pattinson created such a big hole, trench even you'd call it, in the wicket where his front foot lands on the crease because it was soft. And James Pattinson's a big boy, he hits the crease hard, and it was like dangerous. So if he was to run in again and land in a similar spot, he could easily do his ankle or something like that. So had a break, and they opted to come around the wicket and bowl around the wicket often to mix that up and not destroy one side of the crease. But they brought the stamper out, the big metal. It's hard to explain what it is, but they stamp it into the ground and try and flatten out the crease. And they did that nearly every over.
Was that the Adam stamper?
Oh no.
Yeah, good one, Lee.
Thanks.
A couple more breaks as well. I created a bit of an issue. I played a sweep shot, came off the middle of the bat, and the umpire actually did a really good job at square leg to get something on it. He did a bit of a hop and jump and kicked the ball down a fine leg, meaning that I got a single for it. Probably cost me 3 runs because I was going for 4, but that's not the important part. The umpire
well, it is.
had to go.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, the umpire had to.
The poor old umpires. Yeah, I was going to say the poor old umpires had to retire hurt, and then your interview afterwards, you were just stressing about your boundary.
Yeah, hopefully he's okay. I haven't actually heard how old he is, but yeah, apparently his foot blew up, and hopefully no broken bones or anything. But I have to wait a bit for the third umpire, Donovan Kosh, to come out and take over.
Yeah, right.
The great substitution rule again.
Yeah, right. Is there? How does that work? Is that? Yeah. He's just sitting in the crowd waiting for something like that. Is that?
I don't think. He's
crowd. I'm not sure how they work because they can go upstairs and have a look at runouts and that sort of thing in our games. So they need another umpire to look at that. And I think they usually have 4 at the game. So I'm not sure if another guy then takes over that third umpire role. But then the third umpire has to come out in the field and be one of those 2 on the field.
You might have just had some random go into the third umpire seat as when you bowled over one umpire. They just had to replace the third umpire with some guy that was guessing.
You can't do much worse than some of those video replay situations that we've seen in the past, can you?
No, that's true. Yeah, that's exactly right. Very good, Haz. And then also we obviously had plenty happening in the Australian Women's 2020 again that was yesterday, wasn't it? But we've been talking about the fact that they have been demoralising West Indies and hoping that they sort of get to play against someone different. Those prayers were answered. They got to play against Sri Lanka, but they've done a serious number on them as well.
Yeah, no, it's good to see the Aussie women's team keep doing well, and Beth Mooney, fellow Queenslander, getting 113 off 61, which is pretty good effort. That's a good strike rate, good going, and tough place to bowl North Sydney Oval where they played, Jess Jonathan with the best economy rate for the Aussies, defending that total with economy rate of 6.75 off her 4 overs. But they have to back it up again. They're playing at North Sydney Oval again tonight for Sri Lanka again. So I'm sure another high scoring affair.
So they're playing again. That's like two games in 2 days.
Yeah, they're not messing around, so getting them out of the way. But I think 2020, so I guess it's not an all-day thing. They're not standing in the field 50 overs, so I guess they can get through it.
Absolutely, very true.
Yeah, no, agreed.
And just in terms of sort of a couple of Redlands Tigers results from the weekend, probably the one story that I wanted to bring up, guys, we're running out of time, but someone who does deserve a bit of a rap was Nick Herford, who at 39 years of age and plenty of years of playing, actually broke through and scored his maiden first grade 100 and made sure that it was a big one too, sort of 178. He ended up scoring before running himself out, and that was against Wynnum on the weekend. So 178 out of a total of 397 were bowled out for in the end. So wanted to give a massive shout out to him. And Mitch, you actually had a couple of hundreds in your game as well in second grade too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We had a good day against Wynnum as well. We had a couple of younger fellas make some big hundreds, which was nice. Young Dylan Kritzinger, I think, hit 120 off of, like, not many, 130 maybe. And Bailey Lavender batted slightly longer for about 5 hours and probably faced a few million balls and ended up with about 140. So that was an impressive knock as well.
Great knock. Yeah, it's good to hear.
He's a very good player and he's been working hard, so it's nice to see him get that success.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Skinnell, how'd you
go? Yeah, came out towards the end of the day after copping a bit of pad rash watching those two and peeled off a little 40 not out, so I'll take that.
Absolutely.
Nice work.
I won't take what I got, but we won't mention that. Well played, Lethal. Now, boys, we'll move on very quickly. Now, the next segment, obviously, is we basically went to the Instagram questionnaire and we got some interesting replies. We're obviously rushing through these guys because we do not want the episode to go forever and be another long John Silver. So we did have a question about sort of the result of why I was changing my boots yesterday and what I was doing there, and so wanted a little bit of insight into the touch football that I was playing yesterday. That was obviously for the Redlands Crushers, one of the great clubs. That's who we've played all of our junior touch for and senior touch for, actually. Redlands through and through. The change of boots basically were because every time that I wear the fluoro green ones, I get bullied extensively, and people say run at that guy with green boots, and then like in one particular occasion they said, run at green boots, he'll let one in, and I was like, no, not a chance, I'm not letting one in, obviously. And sure enough, the very next step, sweeper on me, bang, score, see you later. Perfect. So from that moment on, I've always been a little bit hesitant about wearing the greenies unless I'm feeling in very good form. And as yesterday was my first game in 5 weeks, I thought that the black and white ones might be more appropriate.
Yeah, no, that's fair. How did those games go?
Well, we lost both, so they didn't have.
Okay, yeah, right. Did you find your form at all?
I didn't. No, probably not. Perfect. In fact, they are New Balances. Has actually helped me get them. They're great New Balance boots. They felt very, very good, but I think the person wearing them was just not killing it.
Yeah, you certainly can't blame the shoes. No, New Balance is best of the best.
That's right, Has. Look after the sponsors there. Now, guys, in the touch games that actually people care about for the Redlands Crushers, the men's Prems won 13-7 against Gold Coast yesterday, which moves them to third place on the ladder. Obviously, we're getting to the pointy end of the season for the Metro Cup 2019. And then Redlands Crushers women Prems as well. They won both games, first 3-2 against Gold Coast and then 4-3 against Brothers in the second game. That was a double header to ensure that they'll also play in the Metro Cup finals this season. And so massive shout out to Chris Ross, who is coaching the women's Prems there. He's done very, very well. And then we also, what was the other piece of news that one of the Instagram followers asked us every single week, and I will not lie, this is definitely not my area of expertise. In fact, I've never watched one of these fights in my life, but apparently in the UFC, we've got the biggest Australian middleweight championship fight at Marvel Stadium this Saturday night. That's coming up. Some are saying that it's Australia's sort of biggest ever battle, and so it features the Australian fighter who's Robert Whittaker, his name is, and he's defending his middleweight belt versus New Zealand's Israel. How the heck do you say that? Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You reckon?
Yeah, take it and run, see what happens.
So, Drew, you've obviously been asking for some coverage on the UFC for multiple weeks. Every single time we put that up on Instagram. So we have succumbed to your peer pressure. But obviously I'm unsure if that's really done it justice. But I will say that Adesanya, if that's how you say his name, is definitely undefeated so far in his UFC career coming into this. So sounds like Robert Whittaker will be up against, so I'm sure Drew will keep us informed for next week's episode. And then you actually got a request as well.
I did. My mates, Julius wanted me to talk about rock climbing. So talked about surfing being in the Olympics next Olympics, and rock climbing is also going to be in the next Olympics. I actually went to Crank indoor rock climbing the other day and pick up something there. Didn't actually do any rock climbing, but it was pretty impressive to see all the people there and all the different things and walls you can climb.
What the heck did you have to pick up?
Oh, it was for a raffle, a prize thing. They were giving away some passes for a Highland dancing prize actually for my mum. So that's what I was doing.
As son of the year again.
Yeah.
We're just dropping another sponsor's name in.
No sponsor. I'm a terrible indoor rock
climber.
climber.
Has this individual sponsor. It's not actually anyone's.
I couldn't get up the walls. I reckon you guys would be a bit better suited, a bit smaller frames, way a bit less than me, so you could probably pull yourself up those rock climbing walls, but I definitely couldn't.
Yeah, but I can never reach the next rock, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's one to think about, I guess, as well. But bit of news: Victoria are actually trying to ban people from climbing the Grampians, which I believe are a world-renowned natural rock climbing area to climb. So people are pretty unhappy about the Grampians being banned from being able to be rock climbed on. Couple of reasons. I think some soil erosion. All the people climbing up are creating some erosion there, trampled vegetation around the area. Both seem like pretty minor things, but another one that probably is more important is a couple of people did die recently doing rock climbing around the area. So I guess that's not something you want happening, and it's a risky sport. But if people want to take the risk, then it's probably up to them, I'd say. I mean, as a surfer, you go out there and I could hit the sandbank on the bottom or a reef and do some damage, and that could be it. So that's the risk I take. But hopefully no one bans surfing. So I feel for them there.
Well, there's a freshwater pool coming to the Sunshine Coast. One of those wave pools has. So if they do ban surfing, you can just get into that.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that's any safer, but yeah, I'd love to give that a crack. There is a freshwater surfing pool coming by
Get
by
shot
the
down
report
for
I hear.
every idea I have is always a bad one.
And yeah, we still let you run the show.
No, that's what you're here for. We're happy with that. And I don't know how to say her name, but the Slovenian female, I don't know if you say Jana Garnbrett or whatever it might be, but she apparently has won all 6 events in the 2019 Bouldering World Cup for the women's event. And there are only 6 events, so she's won all of them, which is pretty impressive. I'd say she's definitely going to be the favourite going into the Olympics. And bouldering, if you didn't know, which I didn't know as well, is rock climbing up quite a small wall for them, about 6 metres or so, without harnesses or ropes. And it's just small rock formations or artificial rock walls. And the things you have to grab onto are very small at that level. So it's like a 50-cent coin hanging off the side of the wall that you have to grab onto and pull yourself up with. It's not a big, easy hole to stick your hand in and pull yourself up. So they're pretty impressive what those rock climbers can do.
That is one of the biggest no's from me.
Yeah, that's
thanks. In terms of we won't be doing that, Haz.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do that no matter how much training or practice I put into it.
Yeah, right. And without harnesses or ropes, I know 6 metres might be a small wall for them, but that can be pretty dangerous if you're falling off that, I would think.
Especially when you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can. They scale those walls pretty quickly.
Yeah, far out. There you go.
Absolutely. Now, guys, I do have to wind us up. Obviously, we've gone over time again, which is just stock standard.
No shocks.
Yeah. Now, Skinnell, you were the main man last week, so you may as well wrap us up this week. Really, let people know what happened. Well, we spoke to Jack Lukosius. That's probably our massive piece of news. We talked a little bit about AFL and the AFL Grand Final, despite the fact that was probably not the game we were hoping for. The NRL Grand Final is on this week, and guys, next week will actually be our final episode of Season 1, because obviously then there's a little bit of a transition between the football season and the cricket season. So we'll take a couple of weeks to get some quality videos up again, like the one of me doing the pencil toss from the top of Mount Hotham. Make sure things like that go up. Very impressive. What a shot that was. It only took 2 throws as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, right. Probably helps when it's not legitimate, but that's all right.
Easy, Skinnell. People, Skinnell could win a Hollywood Film Festival. That.
Oh, please.
So that's what we'll be doing in our couple of weeks break there. Now, Skin, where can people find us?
People can find us in most places on the internet: Facebook, Instagram, We've got a YouTube channel that's probably not terribly active, I don't believe. Lethal.
Yeah, it's active.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, it's got the Mount Hotham Film Festival on it. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I think we got Twitter as well.
Yeah, we do.
And the old faithful email address. We got thechocolates@gmail.com. So.
Correct. Now, obviously, we didn't have time to do some of those segments tonight because of the Lukosius interview, which was probably the replacement for that. But obviously, if you had anyone that you need to put in the social sin bin, you've got any questions for Skin Stats, you've got some overused sporting buzz phrases, they're all 3 segments that we would like to do next week for our last episode of the season. But we look forward to obviously being with you again next week. Sam, good luck tomorrow. Go well. Get Queensland another win. Go 4 from 4.
Thanks, mate. Do my best.
Perfect. Keep spanking them, mate, and we look forward to seeing you in studio for next week.
I'll be there.
Perfect. Outstanding, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers.
See ya.